So I wanted to see the show because it looked interesting. It was one of the reasons I did sign up. I was curious about it. I really quite liked it. In fact, I really loved it, and I'm very much into it. I love the score. I love the way it's going on, and I love what it says about Star Wars, because I think one of the things about Star Wars that we don't talk enough about is Star Wars was a postmodern masterpiece. I used to call it Akira Kurosawa Cowboys in Space. The Western or samurai vibe that it used to have isn't in a lot of them anymore, and that's always disappointed me, because I like that about the original films. I like that about Last Jedi. Last Jedi is very Kurosawa influenced, and particularly newer Kurosawa that Lucas funded, which is also why I sort of think it's an interesting movie. Not a perfect film, but it's a very good movie. But The Mandalorian goes into that so smartly. I mean, it is like a lone gunman, lone samurai type of film, and I love that about it. It's so much is it like doesn't even care about not being that, with that kind of music that sounds like a 70s kind of gunfighter show, which I thought was amazing. Like, it's being Star Wars, but like those horns and that, oh my god, that score is beautiful. And I love the end credits with like the art looks like art of books of Star Wars and the Macquarie drawings and stuff. I like what it's trying to do with Star Wars, which is do like a simple kind of lone gunman story. It reminds me of the Dark Horse comics and the books and things like that. Star Wars can get too obsessed with lore and too obsessed with like Star Wars has to be these certain things, and it's kind of like going into the things of Star Wars that we don't get to do enough, which is do the lone gunman thing, do the Western thing, but then at the same time going into the lore. And this is me talking about the spoilers specifically, so you've been warned again. But the baby Yoda thing is so interesting because we don't actually know the race of what alien that is. George Lucas has always been very protective of that character, and apparently he actually let them know what that alien race's name is, which he's never let out. And then Jon Favreau, who wrote the first 4 scripts without it, he wrote them on spec before no one even knew about it when he wrote the 4 scripts, and then he pitched it to Disney, and they loved it. The first one was directed by Dave Filoni, who I don't know a lot of his stuff with Clone Wars, but I know he's highly regarded in the Star Wars world. The other was directed by the director of Rick Fuggy. I can't remember. What did he direct? Like that movie? I can't remember it. And Pan liked it. It was about like the kids who sell drugs with like Bitcoin. I really liked what they're doing with it. I thought the action was well done. They set up the world very well. Werner Herzog and the whole supporting cast. The whole cast is good. I like Pedro Pascal as apparently he's Don Jaren, or the Mandalorian. It's a very physical performance, and he's good at projecting that kind of strong Western sort of masculinity. But then you have the supporting cast from Werner Herzog, who's amazing, to Horatio Sands as an alien, to Taika Waititi as IG-11, to Nick Nolte as the little alien who's like, I have spoken, which I love that whole thing. I really love this. It's one of the best Star Wars things I've seen. But I also love the lone wolf and cub idea. The idea like, no one's really seen a Jedi because this takes place between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. So the only Jedi they've heard of is Luke, who's more of a myth. They're kind of getting into the ethos and the kind of ideas of it, but in kind of like a moral way. Like, I think Westerns very much like moral plays, like moral theoretical plays. You really get into the best ones. And this is playing that way, particularly because the Mandalorian, was an orphan. Like, is he going to give up this Yoda creature who's supposed to be 50 years old? That first episode I thought worked really well, setting him up and setting up the world. The second one I know has gotten some crap because it's basically like he has to do this thing with the Jawas and they take apart his ship and everything like that. But I would say that second episode is playing like a Western because the West was hard and people would fuck with you and take things away from you and you'd be set in those situations. And I think that's what they're selling predominantly. It was dope. Thank you. Sorry, guys. The director of Dope did the second episode. I liked both of them, and they played like a classical kind of Western. I really was in awe of this show, and I'm kind of highly recommending it to people because it's the kind of Star Wars you want. The one that like couldn't happen because Lucas wouldn't let them just hang out on Tatooine and fight Jawa in Return of the Jedi. And to me, that sounds really interesting. And I feel like too much Star Wars has been about the big, huge thing, and this is letting Star Wars be those small characters, that world you wanted to open up from the first one and go into. I really love that about these first 2 episodes. The first one more setting up the world, having that amazing, awesome opening sequence, sort of not fully understanding what the Mandalorians are, but understanding, how bounty hunters are and everything like that. And you got a lot of, I thought they were cool action sequences. Some people have complained about them. And then in the second one, more being about like him on this sort of lone wolf and cub journey, which it very much is. Star Wars has never really gotten to this pure Western kind of vibe, but I have noticed like they've been influenced by like Hidden Fortress in the original one, and I've always wanted a Star Wars film to be like Yojimbo, and this is probably the closest we'll ever get to that. And I like journeys in Western films. Like the road movie in a Western is always really cool, and that's what this has been so far. We'll see where it goes, and people have suggested that the first 4 scripts are a little rougher, and that's why the episode lengths are shorter. I like that, frankly, and the rest of them will be more hour length, and that's kind of what they insinuated when they picked this show up, even though it's going to apparently come back for a second season. Not sure what that would be like, but I really like The Mandalorian right now. It's a good adventure show. It's a good Western. It's probably one of the best Westerns you've seen in a while, and it's one of the Star Wars things that gets the whole theory of Star Wars. I know Lucas kind of worked as a consultant on this, probably more than he has in any of the movies, and you can kind of feel it in the right way. I really like this. I know a lot of people have already spoiled the Yoda thing, and that's unfortunate. It was trending, #1 trending on Twitter last night. I hope they don't, because that was a surprise, and I know there was a big thing at the end of the first one, and I was legitimately very surprised, and I love that about it. This is a really great Star Wars show, and it's probably not getting the acclaim for being I'd say since Disney has bought Star Wars. The Force Awakens, The Last Jedi are kind of 2 of the better ones, but I would say this has the potential of being the best one, because it really gets to the real core of what Star Wars is, and understanding like what Star Wars was from the beginning and what it always is. But it's also telling just a great Western story, even in the flow more of a Western in the second episode than the first one, which was trying to play Star Wars and Western at the same time. I'm curious what the other episodes will do, but I think because it's so well cast, so well organized, Jon Favreau did a great job of writing it and kind of curating it and producing it, and both the directors, Dave Filoni and the guy who did Dope, who I won't say very well, have done really great jobs with it. I'm very excited for the show, and I think I'll continue reviewing them henceforth. But if you're very curious about The Mandalorian, definitely check it out. To me, it's a must watch. It's one of my favorite series is going right now, and I was like, I'm already into the music. I loved I had to watch the second one right when it came out. It was so exciting, and it's just one of the most exciting things I've seen from a Star Wars story in a long time. And I just love the idea of watching like this lone gunman in the Star Wars world, in that rough Star Wars world that we've got hints at, and being able to explore that with all these different creatures is honestly really cool. I know some people don't want the Jedi world as much in this, and there's some people very pro the Jedi world. I'm sort of fine with this, to be honest, but I can understand that. But I would highly recommend The Mandalorian. I think most people would be really into what it's really doing, and I like that they're able to take a classic kind of samurai tale with Lone Wolf and Cub and kind of make it work within the Star Wars world and not make it feel inappropriate, make it feel almost perfect. And as of right now, it's one of the more perfectly Star Wars things I've seen of the Disney Star Wars era.